What's up, everybody? Um, I'm excited to start something new. Um, it's not something that I plan to do. Um, what's that phrase? Your bingo card? I didn't have this on my bingo card that I would do Tubi movie reviews, but the reality is that every now and then you can find some pretty good movies on Tubi, and every now and then you can find some stuff that you saw a long time ago that you can't find anywhere else. Like there's this movie called Dirty Game that I'm gonna review that I think a lot of y'all would like. It's one of the better independent, low budget, black movies I've seen before. But this one hits home because they had a premiere for it at Mayfair Mall movie theater, and I can't remember what I had going on, but I did not go for the premiere. But the star of the movie is one of my buddies from high school, very well known local rapper slash MC from Milwaukee by the name of Andrew Green. In the movie, he plays Andy Lee, but Milwaukee knows him as Baby Drew. And I will I will put a clip of one of his live performances. He really recently just opened up for 8 Ball and MJG last Saturday, as a matter of fact, in Milwaukee. And I'll also just put a YouTube clip of one of his more popular songs, so that you can get a feel. Because one thing I like about the movie is nothing about him really gave off rapper in the way that he depicted the character. And I think that's good for two reasons. It shows range outside of typically what it is, but also it kind of makes sense because if you listen to his music in Milwaukee, and some of you in the Midwest are familiar with his music too, because online he got kind of popular. But he would always, all of his vernacular and most of his references in his music, even though his music came out 1998, year 2000, and then going forward. So, even though he has about 26 years, rooted in Milwaukee as a rapper, his vernacular was always the 70s. So it was always kind of like a Let's Do It Again movie, like Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier, Cooley High. It was always like a cool 70s type of mentality, in terms of what he rapped about in his references. I was locked in the joint for about a 10 piece. So that's what he says on the start of this song called Wide Body Rides. So, how many of us 35 years and up call jail the joint? But so since he's always kind of rap like that, and I'm thinking it was like either one of his uncles or his grandfather, maybe his dad, is who he kind of got that character and vernacular from. But in the movie, it makes sense because even though he was rapping some really cold bars and cold hooks and all of that with his music, he always had this undercurrent of like a 70s movie character with the way that he would talk on like the ad libs and like the skits and stuff like that. So now in the movie, now all that stuff that you heard in the raps, that's really who he is. So he plays a character named Andy Lee, and Andy Lee has a bar called The Hole in the Wall. And the bar is actually Ralph's. And Ralph's is located on 45th in Lisbon, So the first thing I can do to compliment the direction of the movie, if any of y'all know anything about Milwaukee, we're not as dark as Gary, Indiana. We're not as dark as East St. Louis, Illinois, but we are a dark city. Like it's rough in Milwaukee. And when you see the drone shot overhead of 45th and Lisbon, you would think it's a beautiful neighborhood. Like when I'm first watching the movie, I'm like, are they in Orlando, Florida? Like that's the first thing I thought. But then when I saw Ralph's, I was like, no, they're not in Orlando. They in Milwaukee. So just the lighting and how bright everything is, it kind of gave you a positive vibe. It just made you forget that it was Milwaukee. And for any of y'all who grew up in Milwaukee, you know what I mean. It didn't have that dark, negative energy or feeling around it. And he owns the bar, but he has a gambling problem. His wife in the movie, her name is Jade, but I guess she's a rapper slash Instagram influencer by the name of Crystal Doll out of Detroit. And she is stacked. But the way she talks and complains to Andy about what he's not doing, she very much sounds like a Milwaukee woman with the way she talks. So I don't really know how to describe that other than to say, I guess Detroit women and Milwaukee women talk similar. And he has some cool characters that work for him. His right hand man is always cleaning the top of the countertops. He did a good job. There's another bartender who goes by the name of Detroit Barbie. And then there's I'm not sure if the proper terminology is dwarf or little person. So I'm gonna say little person just so I'm not offending anybody in that community. You guys have to be the one to let me know if dwarf is okay. But I'm gonna go with little person, and she's very cute. And Kelly Kellz pats her on the top of the head, calls her little girl, even though she's a grown woman, and she complains about that. But Kelly Kellz, very funny comedian, graduate of Central State University, no longer lives in Milwaukee. I believe she's been in Atlanta for 10 years. It could be longer, but at least 10 years since she left Milwaukee. And she plays a woman that always used to gamble with Andy Lee, but she talked him into gambling off his bar, and he agreed and lost. And so I think the writers did a good job of, it wasn't just, okay, now that I own you, you got to do whatever I say. So of course you got the sex scene. So she makes him have sex with him. But even cooler than that, she said, you got to watch my kids. So I thought it was smart that they had Andy do more stuff besides just, you got to have sex with me anytime I want you to. And one thing about Drew that's always been funny, and this even goes back to even just in high school in the lunchroom, he can say something and be so laid back with how he say it. So it's like he know he's saying something funny, but he won't let you in on the fact that it's funny because he be so laid back with how he's saying it. So I guess on the second time when Kelly Kellz said, well, you gotta have sex with me to make up for the fact that you owe me this money for your bar, she gave him some what do we call those, male stimulation pills, Viagra. I'll just call them Viagra pills because I don't take them, so I'm not that familiar with them. So she gave him 2 of them. So after they was done, you know, they got the big bulge up there, and then Andy, Baby Drew's looking back. How long is this supposed to last? Like, he got this big old, protrusion coming out. And he ain't yelling, hollering, just casual. How long this supposed to last? And Kelly Kellz like, 2 weeks? And so, at the end of the movie, he gets an idea from a pastor to sell plates. And, it wasn't put together very well, how they just kind of rushed to that conclusion. But one of the guys helped collect the money and pass him out the plates. Next to him was Antoine Hogan's, a.k.a. Young Twan, a.k.a. Young Tweezy. So I'll say rest in peace to him again. So I was not expecting to see Young Twan, on the screen next to Drew. So that kind of, hit me right here in terms of the end of the movie. But overall, man, you got an hour and a half on a Saturday like today when you ain't doing too much. Man, enjoy the movie Hole in the Wall and appreciate some good actors from Milwaukee and definitely from our Midwest neighbor, Detroit. And salute to Baby Drew for your first movie, and I hope you have a lot more.